All right, Dana White just broke the news, UFC 287. Jorge Gilbert Masvidal will be fighting Gilbert Burns in the co-main event, and I am very excited because this matchup is absolutely sensational, okay? Jorge Gilbert Masvidal, who is on a 3-fight losing streak, is stepping in the octagon once again at UFC 287 and going up against Gilbert Burns, okay? You got to respect Masvidal. He's in a tough position, a very, very tough position. 3 losses in a row now over the last 3 years. 1 to Colby, where he got out-wrestled for over 5 rounds. 2 to Kararu Usman in title fights. Certainly no shame. No shame in that whatsoever. But it's a dangerous position going in against Gilbert Burns, because if he doesn't get the win, of course, he's then going to be on a 4-fight losing streak, which is a stark contrast to the run that he was on in 2019 when he was the darling of the sport. Went out to London, knocked out Darren Till in a shocking upset, got the fastest knockout of all time against Ben Askren, and then beat down fan favorite Nate Diaz, okay? That's what set up these title fights. Went up against Kararu Usman on short notice, didn't get the job done, got out-wrestled, got clipped in the rematch and put to sleep, and then got frustrated and pinned up against the fence and taken down repeatedly by Colby Covington, and then had a sly little rematch at Pappy's Steakhouse, allegedly, and that's still going to play out in the courts. Apparently, I read online that he could face up to 15 years in prison. I don't think that's going to happen. I hope this all gets settled and we get back to seeing these guys fight inside the octagon. Now, as I say, I respect Masvidal for taking this one, because he could have made a decision and said, no, I want easier matchups, okay? But he doesn't. He obviously wants to fight for the belt. He wants to be the champ. Of course, he's not getting any younger, and he wants to maximize his career and his opportunity while he still has it. Doesn't want to beat lesser competition. Right? Granted, he would have been in a position to say to the UFC, hey, I just fought Kamaru twice. I fought Colby Covington, okay? I ain't going to fight for the belt in my next fight, so just give me someone to step down the ladder a bit. But he didn't. He said, I want Gilbert Burns. I want to fight that guy, okay? And that is sensational, because on paper, it's not the best matchup. Granted, Masvidal on the feet is so slick and tricky. Of course, he's got knockout power. He's got great flying knees. He's got great footwork. But more importantly, he's got the dog inside him. We know about his street fighting background. The man will fight anyone, anytime, as I just said before. But against Gilbert Burns, how does he get the job done? We know Gilbert Burns has got knockout power, right? Gilbert Burns' last time out against Neil Magny was pitch perfect. That was executed to a T. Against Neil Magny, he stayed way out on the outside, kind of frustrating Magny, frustrating the fans in the audience, because it wasn't a barn burner immediately. But when the time was right to strike, he did it perfectly. Through a right hand, that brings the hands up of Magny, gets the body lock, puts him down, passes the side control, gets the head and arm triangle, and takes home the win, right? Done perfectly. Burns can have dogfights as well. Look at that fight with Khamzat, okay? One of the best fights of that year, and a back and forth brawl that pushed Khamzat to the absolute limit. So he's a 4-time jiu-jitsu world champion. He's got tremendous takedowns of his own. He's got knockout power. He's got heart for days, conditioning for days, and he's just as much of a scrapper as Jorge Masvidal. So this fight on paper is just going to be ridiculous. Can Masvidal keep it on the feet? Because against Colby Covington, he wasn't able to. In the first fight with Kamaru, he wasn't able to, okay? But he said after that fight, I'm going to go away. I'm going to work my ass off. I've got to get better at grappling. He didn't make any excuses. He said, my takedown defense has got to be better, right? And I believe that he's been working on that nonstop. You see him wrestling all the time on social media. So he knows what he's got to do in this fight. And he knows he's in a tough position. Daniel Cormier even came out and spoke about it on his YouTube channel as well. Shout out DC. You know, nobody wants to have 4 losses in a row on their record. And when you're at 3 in a row and you take on a guy like Gilbert Burns, it's a possibility. It is a potential. But with great risk comes great reward. Because if he can beat Gilbert Burns, then all of a sudden, the man's back in contention. This sport is all about, what have you done for me lately? You're only as good as your last fight. And granted, his last 3 didn't go his way. But he beats Gilbert Burns, who's the belle of the ball right now after what he just did against Magny and what he did against Khamzat Chimaev. Everybody loves Gilbert Burns, and rightly so. If he can beat him, then all of a sudden he is right back in contention. And let's remember, Leon Edwards is the champ. There is a storyline with Leon Edwards and Jorge Masvidal, which goes back to the Darren Till fight 2019, the infamous 3-piece in a soda. Leon was talking recently. He wants to fight. Masvidal. He wants revenge. He wants to get him back, right? He assaulted him, essentially. He wants to beat him up. Of course, he said, but Masvidal keeps losing. He said, I want to fight him, but he keeps losing. Well, if he can beat Gilbert Burns, here we go. You never know. Maybe a title fight might be on the horizon. Now, some people will go crazy when I say that, but Masvidal is still a star. He still draws people in. People still want to see this man fight. So him versus Leon Edwards, if Leon can get through Kararu and Masvidal can get through Burns, a lot of if, buts and maybes there. But if they can, then that's a fight that I want to see. And also it clears up some of the other stuff in the division as well. And by the way, Gilbert Burns, same thing to him as well. I want to see him fight for the belt as well. Burns deserves it. He's a real fighter. He's an absolute awesome person and a hell of a bastard inside the octagon if you're facing him. So him versus Burns and Masvidal, that makes all the sense in the world. And what else does that mean? It also means that Belal Muhammad and Colby Covington should face one another. Belal Muhammad says that people are turning him down left, right, and center. We know Gilbert Burns called out Colby Covington after his win at UFC 283, but that's not the fight that's materialized. So Colby Covington is looking for an opponent. Belal Muhammad is looking for an opponent, and these two have very similar styles. One would think that this would play out on the feet. Colby's very good on the feet, very, very fast hands, not the biggest power. Belal Muhammad has shown off better striking recently. Last time out against Sean Brady, did it all with the hands and got the TKO in round 3. So he's improved drastically there. So this fight between Masvidal and Burns, whoever wins that, could emerge as potentially the next contender. And Belal versus Colby Covington, that allows that to logically be made, and potentially they're fighting for the belt next if they win as well. So that is UFC 287. And UFC 287, what a fight card this is. Main event, I did a video on this. Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya for the 4th time or the 2nd time in the UFC. Burns versus Masvidal in the co-main event. Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio, that's a ridiculous fight. If you like striking, you got to see that one. Then we got Christian Rodriguez versus Paul Rosas Jr., 18 years old for Rosa Jr. Remember, made his debut, UFC 282, looked sensational, got the finish. Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez. I mean, come on, that is a sensational fight. Cynthia Calvillo versus Lupi Godinez. Luana Pinheiro versus Michelle Waterson Gomez. Ignacio Bahamondes. Nicolas Mota. Steve Garcia. Shaila Nerdenbecker and Gerald Merchart versus Joe Pyfer. So UFC 287, absolutely stacked, gotta be sensational. But this video is all about Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. Okay, who do you think wins this one? Not an easy fight for both guys. Stylistically, I lean towards Gilbert Burns because of the wrestling, because of the jiu-jitsu, because of the knockout power, and generally probably stronger and more powerful. But Masvidal's slick. Masvidal's tricky. Masvidal's been around the block so many times. He's got a few tricks up his sleeve. So what do you think? Who wins that matchup there? Interesting. Right now I'm leaning towards Gilbert Burns, but you can never underestimate Jorge Masvidal. So still, let me know what you think in the comments. Who wins that one? What do you think? Subscribe, ring the bell. See you soon.